Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining for another session today of our Village Vitality series. My name is Aline, and today we'll be focusing on a full body strengthening mission, and with a special focus on upper body. So don't think we're not working lower body still, but we're incorporating a little bit more upper body strengthening today as well. That's something that's really important because we don't typically strengthen our upper body muscles just in everyday activities. With our legs, we keep decent muscle tone just by walking, standing up, sitting back down, and all of that. We keep from losing too much muscle mass, at least. I don't want to give the misconception that you build muscle just by everyday activities. But with our upper body, that suffers a little bit more. We see a lot more deterioration, a lot faster in those muscles. So we're going to work on strengthening and stretching them today, especially. So notice my setup here. I do have a mat today. A mat is never required, but two reasons why you might really want one. One is if your chair slips and slides around on the floor, so if you have a pretty slick flooring, you definitely want to invest in getting a mat, which you can order on Amazon. You can find them at Walmart, Target. They're pretty easy to find and probably, I don't know, around 8 to 20 bucks for the cheaper ones. Another reason why you might want one is it just feels really nice to have it under your feet for standing postures, for lunge postures, and all of that, especially if you have hard flooring. Kind of weird on carpet, but can still work with it. All right, I also have my towel today to help with some hip circles, and I am barefoot today, so highly recommend that. We'll be doing some stuff where we're stretching the feet and working through range of motion in the toes. And for any of our standing and lunging postures, it's wonderful to train your feet in a different way without the shoes on. So unless you've been told by your doctor that you pretty much should always have your shoes on, then go ahead and slide the shoes and the socks off because we want to make sure socks can make things slippery, even if you're on carpet. So I really encourage you to take the socks off as well. All right, so once you are set, we will find our centering position. So remember, if you have issues with the feet falling asleep, legs falling asleep in this beginning portion of class where we're sitting still for a while, then you're going to want to come more to the back or middle of your chair while still maintaining that upright posture as much as you can. If you don't have issues with it, or it's not bad enough to cause you to need to change, or if you can just alleviate it by shifting every now and then and freeing up the blood flow and oxygen flow down the backs of the legs, then you're going to come to the edge of your seat. We'll be working with Ujjayi Pranayama today, which is our conqueror's breath. Wonderful to strengthen the digestive system, the nervous system, the lungs, of course. Really helps flush waste out of the lungs, so dust and phlegm. It activates our little ciliated epithelium that shift and push stuff or sweep stuff up and out of the lungs. So lots of benefits, plus makes you feel really good. It's a balancing breath. So go ahead and find that nice upright posture. Get some of the wiggles out. Imagine the spine stacking. So with the ribs over the hips, shoulders over ribs, head, especially the ears over shoulders. So we're trying not to have that forward posture if we can. We're trying to, I call it locking and loading. So we're locking back with that chin, but keeping the chin parallel to the ground. A lot to think about already. So relax those hands. Let the eyes close. And just begin to see what happens when you close the eyes. checking in with the body and the breath and the mind this morning. And for this breathing technique, we'll start a few rounds with the mouth open. So you might remember this one. We make a ha sound on the exhale, like you're trying to fog up a pair of glasses before you wipe them off. It's that same constriction in the throat. And so we'll try a few rounds with mouth open, and then we'll try with mouth closed, breathing through the nostrils only. So when you're ready to join me, you'll take a deep inhale. And on your exhale, try to lengthen that exhale as much as you can. Try to engage the abdominals on that exhale as well. So a few more rounds like that, inhaling and exhaling. You can stay with that breathing pattern and still get some decent benefit. But for full benefit, see if you can do that same thing, but with the mouth closed. So we're inhaling and exhaling through the nostrils. So we'll inhale and exhale, kind of making that ocean sound now, a little less of a ha sound. I know this takes effort and concentration, but try to relax the shoulders, try to lift up through the crown of the head, and just keep going at your own pace. Keep breathing this way. And if you find that you're getting tired, you're starting to slouch, try reactivating by pressing actively into the feet. So pressing down into the feet, pressing down into the hips, and that downward pressure can often help us lift up with a little less effort in the abdomen and the back. Take about 5 more rounds of breath, unless your body has told you to stop early, and you'll return to normal breathing. And those messages from the body may be in the form of a little bit of dizziness, a little bit of lightheadedness, or just a strange sensation in the body. And if you're still working on that Ujjayi Pranayama, finish out this breath that you're on, and then return to normal breathing. I may cue you at certain times during today's practice to bring that breathing back, and that will be optional but highly encouraged. So let's invite a little bit of movement into the body now. On On your next exhale, drop that left ear down towards the left shoulder. Release that right hand down by your side and grab underneath the chair. Just a light grab. And if you'd like to increase the stretch even more in your neck, so even just grabbing the chair, you might have felt a little deeper stretch. But if you'd like to feel even more, start to lean away from that right hand. So you're leaning just slightly over to the left, leading with the head, and you should feel that intensify the stretch all down to the shoulder. So here we're stretching the upper traps a little bit, our trapezius muscles, and we're stretching some of the muscles in the neck like the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And breathing here. Try to stay with it about 1 or 2 more breaths. You know, these stretches can be a little bit intense, but as long as we can maintain our breathing, let's try to push that edge a little bit. On an exhale, you can release that right hand and at the same time drop that chin to the chest. Trying to stay upright so you're still lifting up as if your head were upright. And just dropping that chin down. So notice the chest rising towards the chin as you breathe deeply here. And that stretch now in the back of the neck. And when you're ready, start to shift that right ear now towards the right shoulder. Sending that left hand down and grabbing underneath the chair, perhaps just staying there with that deeper stretch, or now leaning over towards your right side. So pulling away from that hand, and that depression of the shoulder, or pressing down of the shoulder that we're doing by holding the chair, increases the stretch in those muscles. Keep a few more deep breaths. Again, working that edge to the point where right before it starts to be truly uncomfortable. When you're ready, an exhale will release the hand as well as the chin to the chest. And then just take a few little dynamic half circles. And dynamic meaning we're not really pausing in one place or another. We're keeping the neck and head moving. So basically you're just moving shoulder to shoulder. Resist the urge to drop that head all the way back. It's not great for our vertebrae. Those cervical vertebrae are a little more delicate. And we also have arteries that run along the backs of our vertebrae that can get a little bit constricted and possibly damaged when we just release that head back without controlling. So it's different lifting the chin up versus just letting that head flop back. And when you're ready, an inhale will lift that head back to center. Let's work our way down. If you need to shift a little bit, do it. If you're having trouble with things falling asleep or feeling a little uncomfortable, moving to our shoulder circles. You can do both circles simultaneously. I really prefer to do one at a time. I just feel like it helps me get a little deeper into the movement. So as I lift one shoulder, let's say my right shoulder, I'm pressing my left shoulder down. As I circle my right shoulder back, I'm sending my left shoulder forward. And then reversing. Even here, it's really easy to just kind of let your whole spine move into it. Try to isolate that torso. Keep it still, keep it lifted so that the movement is mostly in the shoulders and we're really working those shoulder joints, warming them up. Starting to warm up those muscles that we're going to be working today. And if you haven't already, go ahead and reverse directions. Notice my hands are kind of sliding along the legs. Yours don't have to do that, but kind of helps me again work through full range of motion. This also works on coordination as well. So it messes with your brain a little bit in just the right way to keep those neural pathways strong, keep the brain challenged. We gotta challenge the brain just like we have to challenge our muscles in order to strengthen it in a way. I mean, the science is a lot more complicated than that, but we can sort of boil it down to that. All right. Any other shoulder movements that feel good to you? Maybe some arm swings. Let's work to release the hands and wrists a little bit. We will be doing a little bit of weight bearing towards the end of class into the hands. So let's start with palms facing down. Elbows just in by your sides. Forearms are parallel to the ground. Working in the wrist. We're going to send the fingers down and then send the fingers up. So here we're working muscles in the forearm and muscles in the front of that arm as well. Again, how's your posture doing? Have you started to slouch? See if you can lift back up, engaging that back, engaging the abdomen. And a kind of tricky one here, side to side. So palms parallel to the ground. We're trying to send the hands in, hands out. Notice how I started moving my arms. We want to kind of lock the arm in place just at the wrist. You don't have a whole lot of range of motion here, so don't fret. If you're thinking, my hand barely moves, it's not a lot of range of motion, but it's still important to be able to move the wrist in that way. Ooh, I'm already starting to feel a little burn from muscle activation here. So it's interesting how I don't do this movement very much during my day. So those muscles get fatigued a lot faster. And that's that burning sensation. Basically, my muscles are unable to clear out the lactic acid fast enough. And so we're training. We're training those muscles and working the joints. All right, relax for a second. Flip those palms up. Let's work with the fingers a little bit now. So let's bring those pinky fingers in. How about middle fingers next? Let's do pointer fingers, ring fingers, and thumbs. Go ahead and just open all the fingers out. Make a fist. Open them out and fist. When you open them out, really spread those fingers powerfully as far apart as you can. Squeeze them in as hard as you can. So I'm trying to get those opposite extremes. And if you feel again the body starting to sag or you're starting to lose that posture, press into those feet, press into those hips, lift up. So if I keep actively pressing, I notice that it's a little less effort to stay upright. All right, let's do one more little finger challenge. Let's bring in the middle fingers, then the thumbs. Let's do ring fingers, pointer fingers, and pinkies. And then just go ahead and shake it out, or any other wrist rolls, anything else that feels good to you to release those wrists and arms. Shift around in your seat if you need to. We'll do one more movement to work now into the spine and all of the upper body, and then we'll get to the legs. So hang tight. Let's bring those palms together. Interlace the fingers. Open those palms in front of you. And we're going to round here. So we're moving through a version of cat and cow that's really great to work into those tight muscles between the shoulder blades that we tend to hold a lot of tension in. So I want to press back through the shoulder blades as I press forward through my fingers and palms. Trying to straighten those elbows. Let's take a couple breaths here, and then we'll move breath by breath once we're comfortable with the movement. So from here, on an inhale, start to lift those arms up and open the chest. Now this may be very challenging. It has to do with shoulder mobility, chest mobility. There are a lot of factors in play here. But if you can, you're trying to lift those hands above the head and then press the belly and the chest forward. Oh yeah. Lift that chin a little bit. Maybe even send those hands behind the head. Again, it all depends on your flexibility. Elbows can be bent here, but we're trying to keep them straight if we can. All right, so let's go breath by breath here. So exhaling, navel to spine, scooping out in that upper body. Arms stay parallel to the ground. Inhaling to lift up and open. Exhaling to round. I know those arms might be getting tired. Try to stick with it here if you can for 2 to 3 more breaths. If you need to drop those arms, though, just keep doing the cat and cow spinal movements. That might have been your last one, or maybe you'd like to do one more. Inhale up, and exhale, release the arms. Whew. All right, shake it out, swing it out. Go ahead and grab your towel. Or not. So remember, you might not want to use a towel, but I recommend trying it out at least once, seeing if you like it or not. If you're going to use the towel, you're threading it underneath that leg and working on circling that hip. And you're trying to move that knee as high up into the chest and as far out to the side as possible to work that range of motion. You guys probably get sick of me hearing me say range of motion, but it is just so important for our joints. Now, if you're not using the towel, you are having the fingers interlaced here. Or ideally one hand so that you can maintain as minimal movement as possible in the rest of the body, just isolating to the hip. Go ahead and reverse directions. Couple more circles in this direction. And then bringing that foot back to center. You can drape that towel across your lap. Straight or sit up really tall here. Press into that left foot especially. We're going to just straighten that right leg. Point, flex, and then bring it back down. If this is incredibly challenging for you to maintain an upright posture while you do this, definitely lean back a little bit. We don't want to disengage. We want to stay engaged, but you just might find it's a lot more accessible to lean back, and that's because of the hip flexors. So it's very challenging to sit upright and work with the leg in this way. And some of you may want that challenge, but for some of you it may be too hindering, and so you can lean back. Let's do one more. Point, flex, and bring that foot back down. Go ahead and sit back upright if you were leaning back. You're going to bring that right foot in just a couple inches. And we're going to lift up onto the toes. Now, those of you who might have extreme osteoporosis, where the really small bones and the fingers and the toes are super, super fragile, you're going to stay here. If that is not an issue for you, Then you're going to try to lift up to the toes. Now, I'm not putting weight in this foot. And then over the toes, just until you feel a stretch across the top of that foot. And if you're doing this, you're like, okay, I don't have osteoporosis, let's try it, but it's really painful, then again, just stay on the toes. Don't do this. But this is a wonderful stretch for the top of that foot and for the toes themselves. Come back, slowly through and down. Let's do that twice more. So we're slowly coming up, really not putting much weight in that foot. Slowly to the tippy toes. Maybe just staying there. Slowly over the toes, if that is accessible. Ha ha ha. It's a pretty deep stretch. So I'm feeling it right here across the top of the ankle joint. But again, you may feel it in more places, depending on your flexibility. Slowly back to the toes and slowly back down. One more time. Maintain that posture even while you do this. I will not let you have a break from working on posture, at least not during this hour. Over. Slowly back up to the tippy toes. Back to the toes. And back down. Excellent. Go ahead and slide that foot forward. Let's hip circle and work on the left leg now. So if you're using that towel, you're threading it underneath, grabbing hold, trying to keep the hands as relaxed as you can, and circling. Torso stays locked in place, or at least that's what we're going for. Might not be able to maintain it, but that is the goal eventually. Remember, you don't have to use the towel. You can use just that left hand. Trying to work as far out, up, and down as possible. Go ahead and reverse directions of that circle. Keep that steady breath. And release. We won't be using the towel again. I'm thinking. I don't think so. So you can just toss it off or maybe set it just out of your way somewhere. I'm going to toss mine off. All right. So now with the straighten, point, flex, and back, remember your options. Staying upright for a little more challenge to the hip flexors, coming back for a little more accessibility. Either way, we're going to straighten, point, flex, and come back down. Now, as I am pointing and flexing, I'm trying not to let that leg lower. So I want to keep it lifted, really work those muscles. Point, flex, and down. Couple more. Trying to keep everything else relaxed. So as I'm leaning back, I want to make sure I'm not hunching those shoulders up or losing my open posture in the chest. All right, last one. Point, flex, and down. Let's come up. And sliding that left foot in just a couple inches to do our footwork. Now, I'm going to move this foot out of the way, but you're going to keep that foot where it is. I just want you to be able to see my foot better. So remember, staying upright, coming up to the toes. Maybe that's as far as you go. Maybe up to the tippy toes. Remember, I'm not putting much weight at all in that leg. Perhaps stretching over. Oh, man, I don't do this one enough. And tippy toes. So we're just holding each position. This is still a dynamic stretch. We're not holding for very long in any one position. but we're still getting flexibility gains from this. Oh yeah, across the top of that foot. We're holding the top of the foot a little bit longer. And tippy toes, toes, and down. Let's go through 2 more times. Nice and slow and steady. If at any point stretching to the tippy toes or across the tops of the toes doesn't feel good, maybe it felt good initially, now it doesn't, then again, just stay at the toes. Okay, last one. Toes, tiptoes, tops of the toes, hold. Try to settle into that stretch. Intense. Come up to the tiptoes. Slowly back down. Excellent. All right. Shake anything out that you need to. We'll take a vinyasa here into our seated forward fold. So decide if you'd like to open the legs out to get a little more into the hips and make a little more room for the abdomen and the torso, or if you want to keep those feet together. I think I'm going to go wide today. And if you do have a mat like I do, it's a really handy spatial tool to bring those feet about the width of the edges of your mat. So we'll inhale the arms up, decide how you want to fold forward, and go for it on your exhale, trying to keep length in the spine throughout the whole time until you cannot maintain it anymore and you fold all the way down. And here you're just going to let that gravity stretch it out for you. So we're tractioning the spine, really bringing more space in between the vertebrae. Can take a little kind of sway side to side if that feels good to you. We don't have to stay still here in this forward fold, and in fact, I rarely ever do that personally. I'm usually moving the shoulders or just shifting the stretch here. On an inhale, start to come up. So remember, you're activating head and neck. Coming up about halfway. Go ahead and bring those hands here for support. We're going to do a little bit of work with locust back bend. This is wonderful to strengthen the back muscles and the backs of the shoulders. So arms come out. We're going to lift up, but not all the way. So almost all the way up to seated. And then I'm going to rock forward, again, keeping the back as straight as I can. I'm going to round a little bit here in the upper back. Inhale up. Exhale down, just rounding in the upper back slightly. Lift up and back. You're probably feeling it in the triceps as well, the backs of those arms. They're working hard, keeping those arms straight and keeping them lifted. Make sure, notice how I'm not moving my head. I'm keeping it neutral, like I'm squeezing an apple under my chin. So this is not a lift with the back of the neck. This is a lift with the whole length of the spine. Let's take one more. Inhaling. And exhale, relax. Nice. So that was our back bend for our vinyasa. Go ahead and walk those feet back in. And straighten that right left leg out. Almost forgot which way to go with my orientation here. So left leg is straight. Inhale to send those arms parallel to the ground, palms facing towards each other. Exhale to shift back. We're going to do a little knee tuck movement here. So on my exhale, and I recommend Ujjayi breathing here, I'm going to exhale and lift my chest up and try to tuck my knee in. Inhale to release. Exhale, tuck. Inhale, release. Keep the spine long. Don't worry if maybe you're just barely getting that knee up. That is awesome. Press into that right foot. Oh yeah, full body strengthening here, y'all. All of our major muscle groups are working, even in the arms and the shoulders. One more. And go ahead and release the arms. Come upright. Shift to the edge of your chair. You should already be there, but we're moving into our hamstring stretch. So remember the options for increasing that stretch. So typically, edge of the chair, we're going to hinge forward. If you're not automatically feeling that stretch in the back of the leg, then remember your pelvic tilting. So you're trying to push those sits bones back and press the belly forward. Relax here onto that right thigh. And here, it's okay to let the head relax. Let that upper body sink down. I never give you that option except on a stretch like this. So take advantage of it while you can. Just relaxing here for a couple more deep breaths. This is what we call a static stretch. So we are holding this stretch. We are holding at this specific joint angle, muscle length, and that's, again, building flexibility in the muscle tissue. Slowly come up on an inhale. We're going to leave that foot where it is for a little bit of a challenge in shifting the body. So the most challenge here will be hands-free, so trying not to touch your chair at all. We're going to shift to the right, coming into a high lunge position. So if I'm not touching the chair at all, I'm picking that right foot up, coming on to the toes of that left foot, shifting into my high lunge. You can do that with your hands as well. So from here, bringing hands to the chair, however you need to maybe pick those hips up, shift all around, get into your best variation of this high lunge position. Definitely want to be on the toes on the back foot. Front foot needs to be grounded, so you shouldn't have the heel lifting. You should be able to get that whole foot down, and you're just kind of perched on the edge of your chair here. If you want a little bit more for the arms and shoulders and strengthening, arms are up, or maybe just one arm if you're worried about toppling over at all. Or if that's too much, hand on hip. And we'll just hang out here, stretching those hip flexors that we worked really hard just a minute ago, and working on leg strength if you would like to. So if you want, I recommend bringing that right hand down to the side of the chair, although I have kind of long arms, so you may want the hand to the top. Play around with it. But you will try to lift up out of that seat, even just for a second, and lower back down. Lift and lower. Play around again with where you want that hand. If you feel comfortable with it, you want to work lower body and upper body, maybe one arm up or maybe both. Let's do 2 more lifts or hold. So maybe you're just holding and not lowering down. 1 more lift. And on an exhale, relax. Go ahead and start to release back to the front. While you're releasing back to the front and finding seated mountain pose again, I'm just going to shift my setup here so that y'all can see me better on that other side. So you are coming to your seated mountain pose, coming to the edge of that seat. finding that upright posture. Feet are planting down into the mat. Let's take our last vinyasa here for our class. Inhaling the arms up. And exhaling to fold forward into our seated forward fold. Releasing here again. Totally relaxing that upper body. I didn't space my feet out wide this time, but you certainly can. And you can also do it while you're down here. You don't have to come up unless it's just not accessible for you to widen without lifting. If you'd like to go a little deeper in this forward fold, we're going to be hanging out here for about 3 to 5 more breaths. So feel free to grab the legs of the chair, to try to grab wrists behind you or under you rather, or even just to grab opposite elbows in the front and let that, it just gives you a sense of added weight to pull you down a little deeper into your stretch. Remember, you can rock it out. So many options over here. See if your body is wanting you to move in one direction or the other. Whatever you're doing with your arms, slowly start to release that. Start to come up, so activating the back, activating the back of the neck, coming to hands on the thighs. We'll do a little more locust work. If you can, go ahead and walk those feet back to about hip width apart while you're here. Let's send those arms back. Lift them as high as you can, palms facing towards each other. Lift up here and exhale down. This time, let yourself fold all the way. Inhale, up. Exhale, fold. If folding all the way feels just awful to your back, then don't go there. Work with the smaller range of motion that we did in the beginning of, or the first round rather. But creating this bigger range of motion is just working the muscle a little bit harder, or the muscles. So we're working erector spinae muscles all along the spine, the whole length of the spine. We're working our lats here, which are large muscle groups on the back, triceps, posterior deltoid in the shoulders. So lots of activation going on here. Last lift. And on an exhale, relax. Shake those arms out if you need to. And let's straighten out that right leg this time. Inhale the arms ahead of you or in front of you. Lift up through the crown of the head. And on an exhale, tilt back. So remember, we're finding that engagement of the abdominals. And here, on your exhale, try your Ujjayi pranayama. You're going to exhale, lift the chest up, and tuck the knee in. Inhale to release. Exhale. Inhale. Really press into that left foot. Important to keep the breath maintained. So even if you're not able to do the Ujjayi pranayama, you're just breathing, exhaling as you tuck, inhaling as you lengthen. Maybe those arms are coming down behind you for support, but if you can, keep them lifted. Work those arms and shoulders. Let's do 2 more. Last one. All right, release that foot. Come up. Let's take a nice relaxing stretch now. So starting, keeping length still as long as you can here. Reaching forward. And then releasing down. Not worrying so much about whether the back's straight or not. And remember to work with that pelvic tilt, especially if you're not feeling much of a stretch in the back of the leg. Some of you I know may feel it a little more in the calves. Also, it does vary depending on which muscles are tighter. So if my calves are a lot tighter than my hamstrings, I'm going to feel it more in my calves. If I'm not tilting the pelvis right, I'm going to feel it a lot more in my calves. So it could be different things contributing to why you feel it in certain areas or others more. It's all about exploring that body. Try to relax here as much as you can. Remember, you can bring a hand here to the top of the foot or shin, but not really, I'd rather just top of the ankle. Because even when we get into shin territory, if you're pressing weight, you're going to want to lock that knee out, which is very, very straining on that joint. On an inhale, I lied. Let's take another breath or two here. Sorry. All right. Now, on an inhale, slowly come up. And we're going to move over to the left to get into our high lunge position. So remember, if you want to go hands free, go for it. If you need the hands for support, go for it. But you're trying to keep that right foot where it is and just start to shift over. So I'm going to root that foot down for some support, and I'm going to shift over to my left side. I'm just making sure I feel really comfortable. Well, maybe not comfortable might not be the right word, but I feel supported and not like I'm going to fall out of my chair. And so from here, let's start with hand on the hip, one hand on the chair. If you feel pretty stable here, try lifting that right arm, maybe even that left arm. So we're holding here, static stretch for those hip flexor muscles. And probably a lot of other things you're feeling, or a lot of other muscles. And let's take about 5 lifts or holding in the lifted position. So you may want to bring hand to the chair the chair back or the seat of the chair if you want when you lift. And remember, maybe you're holding it here. So maybe you're holding both arms, one arm, no arms the whole time, or maybe you're lowering and lifting. So definitely lowering and lifting is going to be a little more accessible. It's easing you into eventually holding the pose. So I do think for most of you, holding it this whole time will definitely be the hardest. All right. Let's try for 2 more lifts. Those of you holding, try to keep it up. Last lift. And on your exhale, relax. But don't relax too long because we're going to move to standing. Coming up through our chair pose, our Utkatasana. So coming to your seated Tadasana. And remember, chair pose is always optional. All of it's always optional, but especially this one because there is balance involved. So walking those feet under you, feet are still about hip width apart. Swing those arms forward. Start to send that weight forward. Come up out of the seat. Pause here for a little bit if you can. Try to lift almost like you're back bending with that upper body. Core is engaged, glutes are engaged, quads are engaged. Everything's engaged. And you're breathing. On an inhale, come all the way up. And exhale. Palms together in front of the heart. Just taking a moment to tap in. And on an exhale, release. Come on around to the back of that chair. All right, so we'll be doing a little bit of work today. Continued for lower body, so we're going to hit up the glutes here. and upper body focus. So I'm just going to turn my setup sideways for optimal viewing. Like I said, it is kind of nice for these standing postures to have the feet on the mat. I didn't need to really shift my chair forward, but again, I wanted the best view for y'all. But if you do find that you don't have enough mat behind the chair, you can shift that chair forward. So we're going to begin here with just some upright hip extension work. So what that is basically just sending that leg behind us and then back in. Now the key here is trying not to lean forward at all. I've got my fingertips lightly on the chair. I am slightly shifted towards my right hip, but I'm not dumping over into that hip. And just really powerful activation of gluteus maximus muscles here, which are so critical for our posture, for us maintaining being upright, for walking, for getting up out of our chairs. So if you haven't already jumped in, come on and join me. Pressing back and coming in. All right. Let's do 2 more. And relax for a second, maybe shifting around a little bit just to loosen things back up. We're going to work with some push-ups now. So walk a little further away from your chair. I'm talking about a foot maybe between the toes and the chair leg. Feet are hip width apart. Bring those hands to the chair. Try to keep the wrist as neutral as you can. So we don't want to have a lot of flexion at the wrist. We want to try to keep it as neutral as possible. And I'm just going to lower that torso down, trying to keep the back straight and lift it up. Lower and lift. So I'm hinging at the hips a little bit here. So definitely different than a wall push-up where you're trying to keep that long line of the body. We're letting that hinge happen at the hips. Make sure those knees are not locked out. And you can control the difficulty here by how far away your feet are from the chair. So the further away, you're going to get a little bit more challenge. Do a few more. Trying to keep those elbows hugged in a little bit. So I don't want to bow them out to the sides. I do want to hug them in towards the rib cage. Oh yeah, y'all. You got this. Last one. And straighten up. Relax for a second. Maybe swinging those arms if that feels good to you. We're going to combine the push-up and leg lift together for the next movement. So keeping, again, a good distance between the chair and my feet, bringing hands to the back of the chair. This time as I move towards that push-up, I'm going to lift that left leg up. And then come back up. Couple more like that. Maybe Ujjayi Pranayama. Exhaling down, inhaling up. Okay, next time you come down, let's stay there. Keep breathing. If you can, extend that right arm out. If you can, let's tuck 3 times. Knee to elbow and out. Oh yeah, y'all, knee to elbow. Give it a shot. One more. Extend out. Release that hand. Release that leg. Nice job. Maybe shift around in those hips just to stretch it out a little bit. I'm sure you were feeling a burn, maybe everywhere, but especially in the hips and probably the arms. So swing them out if you'd like to. Let's do that right side, and then we'll cool down. So moving closer to the chair again for our hip extensions. Zip up, engage, shift just slightly into that left hip, and extend that leg back. 2. Keep pushing back. Trying to keep all of this lifted, core engaged. Trying to minimize that movement to just my leg, so I'm not hinging forward at all. Just my leg is squeezing and pushing back. Let's do 2 more. Last one. And release that foot down. Shake out those hips if you need to. Walk those feet back. 10 push-ups. So hands come to the chair. Slight bend in the knees. We're hinging at the hips. Lowering down, but trying to keep the back flat. And up. Ooh, I was letting my elbows flare out to the sides. Tuck those elbows in. 3, 4. Try to keep that neck neutral. 5, 6. When you straighten those elbows, don't let them lock out. 7, 8. You got this, guys. Keep breathing. 9. We'll take a little rest. 10. Yes. Walk those feet in if you need to. Shake those arms out, maybe one at a time if you're a little worried about balance. So you can swing one arm, swing the other arm. Okay. Now let's combine those 2 movements, the push-up and the lifting of the leg behind us. So make sure those feet are a good distance away from the chair. Hands down. We're going to move into that push-up position, lift that right leg. And come up. Down and up. Just about 3 more of these, and then we'll try to hold it. 2 more. Last one, but we're holding. So maybe you're just holding here, and that's a lot of good work. Maybe you're reaching that left arm out. Maybe you're even doing 3 tucks. So we're going to exhale to tuck. Inhale to extend. Exhale. Inhale. Last one if you're with me. And bring that arm in. Bring that leg. Ha ha. And pat yourself on the back. That was a lot of good work. Let's stretch it out a little bit. So starting with those hips, just kind of shifting side to side. Noticing that stretch in the glutes and probably into the outer hip a little bit. Nice work today, you guys. Really a full body effort. All right. One of my favorites, although they're kind of all my favorite, standing downward dog. This is going to stretch glutes, hamstrings, calves, back. Let's see what else it stretches. Chest, arms. So kind of stretch it all type stretch. So for this one, hands to the chair. You're going to slowly start to take steps back. If you notice your chair is starting to slide out from under you, stop. Do not go any further. You may want to take that chair and place it against a wall. So if the wall were right here, or no, I don't even want to tell you to put it against a piece of furniture. I was thinking your couch, but your couch might start sliding. So definitely a wall if you're going to do this one and your chair's sliding. But you're walking those feet back. Back and back, further back, as far back as you can, basically. Letting the knees bend just a little bit. and then trying to sink that head and chest down. So we're trying to keep the spine long, but you might have a little bit of rounding. We're trying for that pelvic tilt again. So instead of my sits bones pointing down and my back rounding here, I'm trying to open my sits bones up towards the ceiling, pushing my pubic bone, pushing my belly down, and getting that deep stretch. You can do any kind of shifting here that might feel good to you, any kind of wiggling around, or just holding still. Just trying to let that chest, that head sink down. That's going to get you the stretch into the shoulders and chest. Wonderful work today, guys. I'm so proud. And you should be too. Even if you could only do half of everything we did. Awesome job. So start to lift the head up first. Very slowly start to inch those feet in. Take your time. Pause here before you take your hands away from the chair, just to make sure you're not dizzy. And now it's time to get comfy. So remember, so many options for Shavasana. If you can still hear me, you can go lay on your bed even, if you can still hear me on your TV or your computer, wherever you're watching. You can relax in the chair. You can relax on the floor with your legs propped up into the chair. So you decide. Get comfortable. We want to be comfortable, but still try to maintain an open chest. So that's always what we want to think about is keeping length in the spine, keeping the chest open, no matter where we go in our Shavasana. And we're just trying to relax the legs, relax the arms, relax the shoulders, maybe wiggle around, jostle around a little bit. Sometimes we got to move those joints in order to relax everything up. So when you are ready, you're allowing the eyes to close. Maybe taking a deep breath. And releasing it out. Let's do that 2 more times. Just gathering up any remaining tension, tightness, stress. And on your exhale, sending it out. One more time. And just let go of the effort of breathing. Finding release. Release of the body, release of the breath, and release of the mind. And if you have trouble with the mind being a little overactive, just bring your focus back to the inner workings of the body, to your breathing and every movement that you feel while you breathe, to all the spaces of the body, noticing tightness, noticing looseness, noticing pain, noticing comfort. My favorite yogic description of the mind and controlling the mind through meditation and through the practice of yoga is describing the mind as a wild monkey. And when we practice breathing techniques, when we practice observation, when we practice meditation, it's like feeding that monkey a juicy piece of fruit. And that monkey sits still and enjoys. And so we can finally tame the mind by working on practices like what I described: breathing, meditation, yoga, just observing. So feed that monkey however you need to, relaxing here a little bit longer. And when you're ready, begin to breathe movement back into your body. And so drawing your breaths deeper and feeling as if those indrawn breaths beginning to move just maybe the big toes first. And then the rest of those toes. And then the fingers. And then the wrists and the ankles. And then maybe one particularly big, juicy inhale to stretch out arms and legs. Might find yourself yawning. Just slowly opening the eyes whenever you are ready. Slowly coming back from that deep relaxation. And thank you all so much for joining me again today, for sharing your practice, for creating the space for change and growth and transformation in your bodies and your minds and your spirits. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. As always, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.